Oh boy, I'm finally back from work and there's more work ahead of me. A huge Counter-Strike 2 update, which we received last night. Well, and we also still have the one from the day before that, which we still need to cover. So without any further delays, let's go over these updates. As always, of course, the timestamps are in the description down below, and if you want to skip ahead, feel free to do so, and so on and so on. Let's start briefly with the small update from the 12th of November, which mainly brought some improvements to some network-related things, as well as a big explanation from Valve, which is a rare sight to see. They fixed the case where the game did not apply the user-specified buffer when spraying a gun, which could have caused some issues when experiencing any jitter or other network-related issues. If this is the case for you, then it's worth trying this specific setting. They also improved the clock synchronization to better handle downstream jitter burst, which I will leave at that, because I have no clue what this means. But this wasn't the only thing that came with this patch note, as Valve also included a pretty large explanation regarding the Telemetry Hud. Before the Armory update, people were experiencing a lot less jitter and packet loss. And according to Valve, this has to do with the Telemetry HUD change they've made with the Armory update. Prior to it, the HUD would display an issue only when packets were dropped or if they were delivered out of order, which according to them wasn't a good metric, as some of those quote-unquote bad events were not negatively affecting the gameplay. After the Armory update, the HUD would also display an issue simply when there was jitter, to most likely also include those instances where bad packets were arriving late because of jitter and negatively affected the gameplay. Which also according to Valve was once again flawed, as some events were once again considered as bad despite not negatively affecting the gameplay. And with this update they basically corrected this. Something is considered bad when it is actually affecting the gameplay in a negative way. I hope this summed up the text nicely while still being accurate, because I don't understand network related issues too well. And I also hope this finally fixed all of the network related issues players have been facing as of recently. Because unlike what Valve has said here, I'm pretty sure that those players were not imagining the rubber banding they experienced. Anyways, now let's move on to the big update. Starting off with the elephant in the rain, Train. Yeah, it's finally back. Well, somewhat back, as the map has seen some pretty significant changes in my opinion, which we will go over in greater detail in another video, so stay tuned for that. The map features some really stunning rain effects, which affects weapons, charms, and character models. Alongside with Train, we have received 2 more maps for competitive, casual, and deathmatch, Assault, which has received a nice upgrade from its CSGO counterpart, and Eden, a really beautiful map. And these 2 are unfortunately for some replacing Thera and Mills. Alongside with this, we've also received 2 new Wingman Maps, which we talked about a while ago, as they were featured on the travel destination page, if you remember that. Palais, a nice rooftop map featured in France, and Whistle, a map with more trains. And these 2, as you may have guessed, replaced Assembly and Memento. Moving on to a new feature that released with this update, Damage Prediction. This new settings allows clients to immediately predict and play the visual and audio effects without waiting for the confirmation from the server. The setting can make shooting feel more responsive, as it is without any delay basically. However, it comes at a cost of occasionally being wrong, as an example due to aim punch or other reasons as mentioned here by Valve. You can see a great example here from a user on Reddit, which I think showcases this feature really nicely. Full credits go to them. This update also brought some animation changes, so let's go over those. The third-person animations have been updated to only play when a player is actually flashbanged. You can see prior to the update that the animation was playing despite the player not being blinded by the flash, which was definitely an issue. And they also fixed the case where the legs were not animating correctly when taking damage, which honestly I was unable to replicate. Moving on to the graphics changes, ambient occlusion has been added for the first-person legs to better ground them in the environment. And we also received some performance optimizations for the Molotov and incendiary effects. And after taking a look at the in-game footage, we can see a slight increase in frames per second, which is nice to see. Good job, Valve. For the grenade changes, we received some brand new features. Valve added the access labels to the grenade lineup reticle, which is pretty nice to be honest, as well as allowing the grenade preview camera to now show the result of a jump throw while holding the jump button, which is a really great feature to be honest. Those quality of life improvements don't stop there, as Valve has also implemented a new map guide feature, in this case specifically for Train. This one demonstrates 4 simple terrorist grenade lineups, which is really amazing in my opinion. The style of this feature reminds me of those grenade lineup maps that I used to train on in CSGO. Good job, Valve. They also added con commands which enable the creation, saving and loading of map guide nodes and files. As far as I understand this means that players can create their own map guide nodes, which seems pretty awesome as it allows you to share them with others. Moving on to the miscellaneous changes, where we received some new game settings for radar map blending, which I'm not sure if this changes anything, as well as the ability to change the background opacity of the radar. Charms now display the template number in their description, and we also received some various other bug fixes which you can see on screen. And last but not least for the patch notes, let's go over the map changes. On Ancient they fixed some lighting errors, however they did not end up fixing the issues that I've discovered, so apologies for this. They also fixed another stuck spot, as well as some other things, like some bad wallbang spots. Italy and Mirage have received some various smaller adjustments, which I was unable to discover, as Valve has not been really too specific here with their patch notes unfortunately, which basically makes this like finding a needle in a haystack. And lastly, let's go over Overpass, which has received a huge amount of changes with this update. Starting off with a hidden change, the cranes now move again, which is pretty awesome. Valve also ended up removing all of the dirty water from canals and bomb site B, which I assume is due to performance issues. They reworked the Heaven drop-down mechanics, as well as changing some of the clutter that was below Heaven. We received various performance improvements, particularly in canals area and bomb site B, which I assume has to do with the removal of the water. They added a sign on long, which blocks a bad line of sight from the boost spot to CT. They removed the small fence at Party, as well as removing the mud flaps below the truck on A side, which you may have mistaken for player legs. They also replaced this window with an opaque surface at the train station, as well as deleting a tree on long that was interfering with a line of sight. They moved one of the cratelets on A side to block a bad line of sight, as well as removing some lamps at stairs that could look like player heads. They also moved the balloons at Party, as well as removing some objects around Park and train station that prevented players from backing into certain useful spaces, which I unfortunately wasn't able to discover. They made some adjustments to the fog, which you can see on screen right now. In LA they removed this chain link fence, which may have caused some visibility issues. They added this piece of wood for the shelf in Heaven to simplify the shape, as well as adjusting the props and lights to reduce noise and make players brighter, which is a really great change. The handcarts behind the barrels on B side have been removed, which is also very nice, as well as Valve adjusting the bad collision around the barrels, which should allow for better player movement. They also added a light here, as well as fixing this graffiti, which previously looked like this. The concrete block on short has also been removed for less awkward player movement according to Valve, and many smaller props are now set to exclude player movement and grenade bounces, which is a nice change. And lastly, for Overpass we received some small visual updates, as well as some pixel peaks which have been fixed. Shoots has also received some performance improvements in some areas, which you can see a comparison on screen right now for. Lastly, let's go over some possible sneak peeks that Valve has given us, alongside with some data mines. On Train there's this destination board which may hint to the next 4 maps, possibly Lake, Cobblestone, and maybe Cache, or another map like Assault as an example, and lastly Bank. Whether or not this is an actual hint remains to be seen, but it is still cool that Valve has hidden a lot of tiny details and Easter eggs on this map, as well as references. Lastly, of course, let's go over some of those leaks that I've just mentioned, which have been talked about by Gabefollower as always. He has mentioned that we may see the return of retakes for Counter-Strike 2, which seems pretty amazing to be honest, as they have been mentioned in the files. And we also have once again some more strings related to pets, which I still don't really understand, but I suppose maybe we get pets for CS2, and Train also features a board with 2 chickens on it, so maybe this is another hint towards pets, who knows. Anyways, this already concludes the video basically, but as per usual with an update there's some brand new bugs. The first one I experienced left me without any sound, and this was only resolved after restarting my game. I'm not sure what has caused this one, but hopefully this one was just a fluke or something that does not happen normally. Anyways, that already concludes this update video, thanks for watching, and I will see you of course in the next one. Bye guys.